Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I apologize for the abrupt ending in the previous lecture. I usually plan for these things to go about 15 minutes, and I did not know that Screencastify only allows you to speak for 10 minutes. So I will, like I said before, lucky you. I do tend to prattle on in these things. I'll try and keep this one short. This video is just to give you a demonstration of a listening activity I do in my classroom. I'm a classroom teacher in California. I usually teach 9th or 10th grade world history. And ninth graders are typically 14-year-olds. They're a little immature. It's really hard for them to sit and concentrate. And what I found is this great website called 15minutehistory.org, which is brought to you by the minds of the University of Texas at Austin. Has a wonderful collection of podcasts. I think they're up to like 80 podcasts now, mostly about world history, but quite a few about U.S. history. And like the title says, they're about 15 minutes in length. Some of them go a little longer. Um, and I have designed several listening activities to do with this. Let me go on and tell you what they are. So, previously, Eric has demonstrated why students should always be told the purpose and the focus of listening. In a history class, when you're delivering content, usually like an audio lecture, you want them listening for historical dates or the names of the people or the big events. In these cases, the students are listening primarily for information. In other cases, they could be listening for tone, purpose of the speech, or bias. So, like I said, I've used UT's podcasts. There's a variety of lectures on this website. They also all have their transcripts, which are wonderful, and they usually all have links to other primary sources and additional resources. So at the beginning of the year, I have my students listen to one of these podcasts to demonstrate the importance of note-taking skills and listening. And the first thing I do is I divide the class into 4 groups. Group A is only allowed to listen. They cannot write anything down. Group B is allowed to listen and take notes, but they are not allowed to use their notes on the test, and they turn them in immediately after the lecture is over. Group C is allowed to listen, to take notes, and to use the notes on the test. Group D is allowed to listen, take notes, use their notes on the test, and I also give them a verbatim transcript of the podcast, which they can use during the test. All 4 groups are given the same 10-question multiple choice test immediately after the podcast, and results have varied slightly from class to class, but generally, Group A members struggle to get between 1 or 2 questions correct. Group B members average between 4 and 5 questions correct. Group C members generally get 6 or 7 correct. And Group D members almost always get all of the questions correct. In some cases, they might only get 9. So this activity helps students see how important note-taking is to performing on exam. After this exercise, I rarely have to answer the question, should we be taking notes on this? When I do get that question, I ask the student back, how many questions do you want to get right on the exam? So I have tried several variations on this experiment. I have allowed a group to share notes with each other. I have allowed groups to write multiple choice questions from their notes before taking the test. I've allowed groups of students to discuss their notes for a short amount of time before taking the tests. And again, I'm a classroom teacher. These results aren't real empirical research, but they indicate that reviewing or processing or interacting with the notes does not have as large of an effect on student performance as the pure act of actually taking the notes. So I encourage you guys to create your own version of this experiment. I will make a Google Sheet available. I'll share it with you in the course. It would be really interesting to see what the results of larger, more rigorous study would reveal. I'm just going to take a couple seconds and show you one of my key findings on this slide was that I gave an entire class the 15-minute history lecture without the transcript. They could not see the transcript on the the screen in front of them. They just listened to 15-minute history. And you can see how many, on average, most kids quit after 1 page of notes. They think, I'm done with this teacher. I've done all I need to do. There's a few that do about 1.5 pages, then we're up to 2 pages, then we're up to 2.5 or 3 pages, and then we're up to, I think, 4 right here. And this I thought was very interesting. What's really interesting is just the total number that cling in this area. Like, that's the bare minimum they're going to do. They're not going to do anymore unless you give them the transcript. And then everybody's performance pretty much doubles. I need to put on my old man glasses for this. But you still see I have a lot of bottom dwellers that are doing the bare minimum. I have people that have written 1.5 pages to 2 pages, and now my winner is almost up at 4 pages. So it's kind of interesting that just sharing the transcript, projecting it in front of the class, makes people do much better. They essentially double their note taking. This next slide, I'm sorry, I'm blocking off part of it, but this is just the typical grade distribution by class in for a listening activity after our Vietnam narratives. And what I always tell the students is, regardless of what group you were in, A, B, C, or D, these are the overall scores. So overall, the average is about 57% right, or actually I should say the average is about 48 right. So 48% right, that means they're getting about 5 questions correct on average, 5 out of 10. And I point this out to the student that this is better than the empirical research shows. We just listened to, a fact that most of the people who watch the TV news can only recall 17% of that TV news. That's because they're just passively listening to it. The act of physically writing stuff down pretty much guarantees you're going to get twice as much right, twice as many questions right. Just the physical act of putting pen to paper and saying, oh, I think this is important. Oh, I might need this later on. That actually improves student performance more than any teaching thing you can do. So I'm going to wrap this up with a few games that teach listening. There's a great book by Jennifer Fletcher called Teaching Argument, and they have a believers and doubters game where you divide the class in half. Half are the true believers. As they listen to something, they are only looking for information that confirms everything they're hearing. They are going to be true believers. They are writing down exactly what a believer would cite as evidence to support whatever the argument is. And then you have the other half of the class that are the doubters. And they write down all the evidence they hear that leads you to believe whatever is being talked about is not true. And then after they've listened to this, you have them stand up and reveal their evidence. And this leads to a little mini debate where you can have them talk about being a true believer, being a doubter. It's a great book, Teaching Argument by Jennifer Fletcher. Then there are two other simulations that I've done that are cultural simulations. One is called Ba Fa Ba Fa. That's more for college students, and the other that is made for middle and high school students is called Rafa. And as silly as it sounds, you can actually Google those and find them online. They're great games that teach listening. So, thank you so much for listening. I hope you're getting something out of this course, and I will look forward to seeing you on the discussion boards.